This time of year is always a little extra. For that reason, today here, we're gonna get right down to it. Down on the mat, taking some time to reset, recharge, plug in, and slow down. In this video, if you care to play along, you'll need a foam roller and an air-filled ball or two. And do yourself a favor, find a quiet space with some privacy, and together we will engage and release the fascial system in a way that will leave you with a little more breathing room, a bit of extra bandwidth, a clearer mind, and maybe even room for that extra piece of pie. All right, let's get started. All right, so here we are. If you have ever done any of these stretch sessions with me, or if you're brand new here, either way, I like to start things off by taking a little bit of inventory, checking in with the body to see how the body is in this moment. And how we're gonna do that today is just by having a seat right in front of the roller. So that roller here is behind me. And I'm gonna go ahead and bring my hands onto the roller behind me. So with those hands behind you, you may realize like, wow, you don't have that much range of motion through the chest to get those shoulders behind you. And so if that's the case, you can certainly do this one arm at a time if that feels better for you. Point being here, the biggest point is realizing how and where you may be tight, what your range of motion is here today. And no judgment, just noticing like what your reality is here today. You can begin to fix the details. And what I mean by that is just expanding, sitting nice and tall up through the chest, so you're not really collapsed and reaching those arms behind you, but where you can feel a little bit more of an expanded state through that front body as your arms stretch and reach out behind you. If you're doing this one arm at a time, this is absolutely fine for you to just explore that range of motion one side, and then you can go ahead and switch to the other. But if you've got both hands behind you, you may notice that one shoulder, chest, kind of front of the body, maybe even into the posterior portion of that shoulder and through the back of the shoulder, has a little bit more range available to it than the other. I know I sure feel a difference from one side to the other here. And as you begin to settle in, you can start to involve your head and neck in this stretch as well. So dipping your chin down towards your chest or over to one side. You can move through that range of motion, bringing your head from one side to the other, allowing your chin to really drop down as you move through midline. If you have tightness that leads from the chest down, the arm, maybe past the elbow into the wrist, some of those areas of tension could be highlighted here. One other thing that you could do, if you have both arms behind you, you can focus more specifically on one arm at a time, right? So I'm going to use this arm here to kind of help guide that roller, looking for offering a little bit more length for this hand that I'm really focusing on and stretching. If I were going to do that on the other side, it would look a little something like this. This is the side that doesn't have as much range. Right? Do you feel that difference? There's lots that you can do here to really work on that expansion through the chest. And so no matter where you are, if you're one side at a time or if both hands are reaching behind you, just slowly start to begin to disengage. Taking that stretch out of the chest, kind of releasing that roller, bringing those arms back in front of you. And you can bring one shoulder at a time through a nice range of motion, whatever your range is here today. Just observing, simply observing where things may be a little sticky or glitchy, okay? And where we're gonna go from here is with that roller behind us, we're gonna come right down onto the back. So with that roller behind you coming down onto the back, I'm gonna make sure that my head is nice and fully supported here as I start to get into this technique. So I'm gonna support my head until that roller is far enough up my back that my head and neck is being supported. And then when I notice that my head and neck are supported, I can let those arms reach out to the side. Again, if you have that range of motion available to you, you can reach those arms out in a T position across the roller. If you don't have that range of motion, that's fine. You can bring your arms down by your side. This more traditional foam rolling technique can be quite active. And what I mean by that is you can lift up through the hips here. Again, making sure anytime that your head and neck is off the roller to support it for the time being, right? Because we're just getting started. You don't want to throw any real big sudden movements into your body that are going to cause it to kind of clench down and really have to work hard to support yourself. So support your head here. You can lift up through the hips and just gently move those hips in a way that kind of steer your body so you can feel that compression of the foam roller up through that more upper part of your back and shoulders. Once you do that a couple of times, you can really allow yourself to begin to get settled onto the roller here and just allow that compression to begin to do its thing. Beginning to sink your body weight into the roller here. Really feeling that compression and fixing the details along the way. And here, what fixing the details might look like is just pushing your upper body into that roller a little bit. You can see here it's subtle, but I'm just nudging myself into that roller. That gives a little bit more compression through the upper back and shoulders. Your palms can be face up or face down, like palm up or palm down here. Ooh. You can even do one palm up and the other palm down, just taking a nice little rotation through those shoulders, especially if your arms are supported here out in a T. If you have your arms down on the ground but still stretched out, you can do the same thing, palm up or palm down. And if you really don't have that much range, your arms can be down by your side, again, palm up or palm down. And you can also, again, like we did in that first technique, you can begin to add in some movement through your head and neck, right? Reaching that head and neck to one side or the other. Moving through that gentle range of motion of no. You may notice when your head reaches looking in one direction, you can feel more of a stretch being highlighted in that other arm. And when you find those places that just feel oh so good, right? Almost like that kind of hurt so good, you can just allow yourself to stay there and linger in that stretch a little bit longer. And we're going to begin to move on. We're not moving very far, so don't feel like you have to completely disengage and interrupt your process. All we're going to do here is just scooch yourself, lifting up through those hips, scooching yourself down further towards the bottom of the mat. So now just your head and neck are being supported. Those shoulders are closer down towards the mat than they are on top of the roller. You can reach back with those arms and your hands to hold onto the roller for a little support if that feels good. And you can, again, move that head and neck through a nice, slow, steady, keeping that compression right on the back of the skull there as you move through that range of motion of no. That side to side action. And again, the area of compression here that we're looking for is like right at the base of the skull. That bony ridge where your head becomes your neck, that occipital ridge. That bony ridge, you can even take your hands and feel that bony ridge right at the base of your skull. That's what we're looking for to be in contact with the roller. And as you move through a couple of passes through that range of motion, you may find that those lines of tension are really highlighted more to one side or the other. You're kind of looking for that, oh my gosh, that feels so good. That's what you're looking for. Or that, oh my gosh, wow, that's tight. I'm just going to slow down and settle into things here. Once you begin to find where it is that you want to be, like with your head and neck, you can take those shoulders and just really root them down into the mat. Right? You might notice as you really drop those shoulders down towards the mat, it dips your chin forward, really kind of highlighting that stretch up through the back of the neck. And we're not doing anything super exciting to look at or to watch here. Really, the excitement is in what you're feeling. We're going to go through each technique and spending 4 or 5 minutes, because that's the amount of time that the fascial system really feels the benefit from lingering and staying in a technique. Once you begin to engage that fascial system, it really appreciates the time, which is why doing a practice like this naturally begins to slow you down. So as you're here and slowing things down, just notice what's happening with your chest. Allow that chest to expand and contract with your breath. Really trying to move that breath all the way through your chest and diaphragm down towards the belly. As that chest expands and contracts, maybe you can feel some sensation happening through the back of the shoulders as well. Noticing that that rib cage is all connected. And the breath, as your breath expands and contracts, it highlights how that bony structure of the rib cage is indeed all connected from the front to the back and out through the side body as well. And before we go ahead and move on, if you're not already and you have that range of motion available to you, just grab onto the roller here. Grabbing onto the roller so you feel like you have enough support, and just allow that compression right up through that occipital ridge. Like push your head down into that roller so you can't, it's almost like you can't miss that sense of compression through the back of the head there. And once you really can't miss that compression, you can turn your head again from side to side. Giving yourself a nice deep breath here, maybe even lifting up through the hips as a way to gently disengage. And where we're going to go is onto the belly, turning onto the belly. And we're just going to take a moment here, bringing the back of the arms, the triceps, right onto the roller. You can bring your hands together, those palms of your hands together in a nice prayer position here. And with your upper body, it's as if you can lift up through that chest a little bit, bringing that roller closer in towards you, finding that expansion through the front of the chest. And then you can roll yourself back out again, right? So just a couple of passes here. We're not here forever, just a nice transition technique to pull those arms in, thereby creating a little expansion through that chest. And then again, you can stretch those arms out in front of you. Not only are you feeling that compression through the back of the triceps, which could feel kind of nice, but you're also getting that range of motion through the shoulders, through the rib cage, even through that low back a little bit. All right. Let's do one more for good measure because that feels so good. Again, bringing those arms closer in towards the body, giving you a little expansion. If you've got some sticky spots through the spine, you may certainly feel that here. Not blowing through anything, certainly just moving through that at your own pace and acknowledging where things are sticky and not forcing your way through it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and push that roller out of the way. And where we're going to go from here, this is the technique that can buy you that extra piece of pumpkin pie comfortably. We're going to take both balls and we're going to go right into that lower abdominal region. So it'll look something like this. Below the belly button, above the hips, into that softer tissue of the belly. Two balls is definitely going to be the friendly way to get into this lower abdominal area. If you only have one, it might feel a little more pointed. We're going to just begin to settle in to this compression here. Slowly, nice and easy, gently, beginning to really allow that body weight to just drop in to those balls, highlighting that compression right through that lower abdominal area. And so I'm going to stay up on my elbows here for a moment and shift my body weight a little side to side, just a little shift of those hips, little shift through that waist, to make sure that those balls are feeling in the right spot, feeling kind of even, not feeling like I am, beating myself up here, because that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking to beat ourselves up here. Oh my gosh. We're looking to find that spot, and I just found it, looking to find that spot where your body is like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. And so important, and so needed. And your weight, your body weight can be more evenly distributed on the balls here. That is going to keep that that focused compression to a minimum because your body weight is more evenly distributed over both balls. That being said, if you like to turn the heat up a little bit, you want it a little more spicy, you can lean more towards one side than the other. Right? You can lean a little bit more towards one side of the body than the other. And once your body kind of gives you that green light that you're digesting, no pun intended, that you're beginning to digest that sensation of the compression, you can certainly go ahead and just drop your head down. If I weren't going to be like totally muffled into the microphone, it would look something like this, where you just drop your head and upper body down onto the mat. Right? And so those balls are either evenly distributed, or you're taking the liberty to shift your body weight into one side where that area of compression is a little more highlighted, where you feel some of those areas of tension. And in through this lower abdominal area, it can feel like your stomach is literally in knots. It might feel like you're running into things that are, kind of not feeling so soft once you get into it in this way. Don't ever feel like you need to beat yourself up if you come across something that you're like, you know what? I'm not familiar with this area. I'm not so sure what I should be looking for. Definitely err on the side of less is more. Becoming familiar with this lower abdominal area there's a learning curve to it. It's full of sensation, and it is so worth your investment of time. And maybe if you shift those hips a little bit from side to side and you create a rumble in the tummy, or you get some things kind of moving around, you're like, I can see how I might be able to work myself into being ready for a second helping or that second piece of pie, right? Sometimes here I like to bend my knees. You can drop those knees from side to side as well. That almost allows you to move over those balls in a way that it's like it gives you a bit of an abdominal massage. And maybe good is relative, but if you do this enough times, you're going to start to be like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. Mostly because you know that the benefit on the other side is so worth it. All right. And so the good news for you is, if you're like, this is super intense, great, we're going to begin to disengage. The other part of the good news is if you're loving this, perfect. Stay here for as long as you need to, for as long as makes sense to you, because sometimes after a few minutes, it's like it's just starting to get good. So you take your time in deciphering how long you need to stay here. But if you're done, here we go. Coming up onto those elbows, and really, as you take some of your body weight off of the balls here when you're up on the elbows, you can really start to shift your body weight with much less compression from side to side. And then as you're ready, you can lean towards one side and pull that one ball out over to the other, grab that second ball. Give yourself a moment here in that neutral position without any tools underneath you. Again, you can be up on your elbows here and just with your elbows nice and rooted into the ground or into the mat, you can just gently, it's subtle, but you can pull that upper body through those elbows. So the elbows are planted and I'm like really rooting them into the mat, which allows that chest to kind of come forward, giving me a little bit more expansion through here. I can feel where those balls just were giving me, having created a little bit of space in through the belly. And if you need to, you can come on to the back and give yourself any other stretch that you may need. Otherwise, when you're done, you are all done. Feel free to revisit this video anytime you need to. If you just need to decompress, take a moment to yourself, make a little extra room through that digestive area, or just have a chance to like slow down and plug in with yourself. It is so important. And with however you spend your holidays, I hope that it is lovely and filled with some smiles and some family and friends by your side doing whatever it is that makes you feel just a little more alive. All right, my friends, take good care.